because these states are consistently managed across these parallel dimensions, where the only difference here in this conversation is the AI character, Mr. James' relationship to the player, we can kind of see how differently it goes. Hi, I am Demon Dev, and I've talked a lot about the writing system Electra. So this is kind of an announcement of a very exciting new era for Electro, and I hope game writing as a whole. And I call this parallel dimension writing. So let's start off with the prime dimension. So this is, what you would think of. You've got some sort of text output here to visualize basically how it looks like in the game. Then you can type into here, what you want to be said, and then it kind of live updates there. So that's all cool. And you can kind of scroll to different options. As soon as you type, it'll jump down to where it is and all that. So that all makes sense. You can write you can jump straight into it with this. And that's really important when you write in Electra in simple mode. It's just like a screenplay. You write for them, you write for you, and you can bring in multiple other characters, and that'll automatically generate an event that will bring those characters in during those moments. So really straightforward. But when we do start getting more complicated, what is the extent of what we can do and how well we can do it? So this new feature set is going to include this node editor right here, where all of your story organization in Electra will basically be managed through this playthrough editor. A playthrough editor is quite literally describing a player's playthrough. So maybe the player wakes up, then they talk to one person, then they leave the apartment, they walk to the subway, they talk to someone on the subway, they arrive at the station, and it's all very easy, to select a conversation that this node, and the node can be anything, should access. In this case, I've got it set to the class, just so it's easier to jump to working on that. But chronologically, I could, put it way down here and have it, be set to here. And when I hit write, it will jump the writer, which is representing this kind of previs primary editor here. Anyways, relatively easy to jump around to different conversations. Okay, you can do this. This is the conversation with Poppy that is attached to the node walking to the subway, talking to Eve, but we'll go back to here for now. So this is something that anyone who's been watching these videos is already familiar with Electra. You can do all that. You can jump into linear mode. I now have kind of a color-coded overlay to show, okay, this is your primary dimension. Now, what is parallel writing dimensions? Well, first things first, I've duplicated the entire node structure. So, okay, we had this writer over here. We can tell it to write. The same thing over here now. We have a second dimension where we can tell it to write. And we're going to go ahead and enable parallel writing right here. So right now they're set to the same thing. You can, of course, jump into different conversations. I think this is an empty test scene, but this one has some actual conversations. So that's cool. You can write two different conversations at once. Now, why would you want to do that? Well, there's a lot of applications. Let me go ahead and bring over the other visualizer right here. There's a lot of applications for wanting to do that. But one of them would actually be writing for the same conversation file at the same time. And hopefully you're beginning to see some of the applications here. If I jump into linear mode, so starting to think about branching dialogue, and let me just jump to the top for both of these. Welcome to English class. So how would I want to write for this so that I can make use of, being able to write twice at once? Well, the big difference here is that we can have not just separate playthroughs, but let's assume that this exact same playthrough for the moment. If we assume the exact same playthrough, we can mess with the premise to basically say, okay, what could be different here across all the other playthroughs? So maybe the difference in playthrough number 2 is actually that the the teacher, Mr. James, really likes us, in a friendship way. And then maybe on this primary dimension, we have it so that the English teacher, Mr. James, really dislikes us. So we can see those ratings happening now. Now the teacher is the one starting the talking, so he's just talking based off of his base relationship with us. But an interesting thing we can do here is now when we branch this, so let's do it over here actually. If we add a reaction here, we do all next, so it's connected. If we add a reaction to it, you notice that it's automatically updating both of them. So this gets two reactions that I can jump between. But in this side, we can say, okay, what would be the teacher's introduction if he was very angry? I don't know why I bother trying to teach you idiots anything. Right, so that represents one reaction, and we can set this one to the other one. So we can even set it to be automatically calculating the AI's decision making here. So if we do that, then we'll notice that when it's automatically calculating, it's going to select the nicer option when the premise is set to a high bond and the lower option when it's a lower option. And you can see dynamically moving this value is going to automatically update. So the really nice thing about having it in parallel here, let me get this a little bit bigger. The really awesome thing about having this in parallel is then I don't have to worry about it anymore. So like, okay, so what I'm writing for here is two parallel dimensions. One dimension, teacher likes us, other dimension, they hate us. So maybe we go ahead and skip on down to some of the different player options. Let's just do manual for now. Looks like manual is overriding both, but we just want it to override the AI's calculation. I'll have to check on that. But if we go ahead and jump down to some more AI options, maybe there's this point later in the conversation where the teacher has called on us, and we basically gave a fake answer. So maybe in this dimension where the AI, Mr. James, is not super happy with us, yeah, we can add another reaction. And this would be a super negative. We'll hit all next to automatically connect it to the rest of the conversation. But now, instead of saying very good, you could say something like, I'm looking for a little more elaboration here. And this, it may seem like flavor text, but I think the feeling will be completely different. We could add another reaction here. Again, we can hit all next. It'll automatically be connected to the rest of the conversation. And we can set this more negative version of the same, because what did you like about it? And if I jump to the same place on the other side, again, let's just set this one to automatically calculate. You can see, okay, so the relationship, even though the wording is very similar, let's see, I need to uncheck this so I can jump around. Let's see, what did you like about it? Oh, very good. And there it is. Right. So because these states are consistently managed across these parallel dimensions, where the only difference here in this conversation is the AI character, Mr. James' relationship to the player, we can kind of see how differently it goes. So in this one, uh, he's being a little bit more hostile. What do you say here? Um, Yeah, and this one he's being more hostile, or sorry, on the right here, he's being more hostile. You know, when it's like, "Oh, I liked it, I guess." You know, in this one, he's more enthusiastic. Very good, but in this one, it's like, "I'm looking for a little more elaboration here. What did you like about it?" And even that has such a subtle difference, you can manage that level of nuance here. You know, the rest of the conversation is exactly the same, and you can carry that into play mode, which is pretty exciting, I think. Yeah. So, anyways, that's kind of a brief intro to the parallel writing dimensions. It's just a tool for you to do two things: organize a single story, and then think about how that story should change or be able to handle multiple different variables. Of course, you could do many different differences. You could do, instead of just the difference between bond and respect, you could have those at different places, but you could also have different playthroughs. So maybe um, the player is dating someone like this character over here, or maybe they're dating Jane over there, and you can have those be the different premises between the two dimensions, and you can write different versions of the conversation respecting that. I'm really excited about this. It's still very much in the alpha stage, but I'll be uploading a kind of alpha build of this tool, so you can kind of look around and see what you think. But I think it's really powerful. I think the huge advantage of parallel writing is that moving sliders around is really cool when you're trying to see what already exists. Like, when I'm moving the bond around, if I set it to automatically calculate, if I'm moving the bond around here, let me jump to the beginning like this, then you can see, in real time, oh, if the bond is this high, he's being nice. If the bond is this low, he's going to be a little bit meaner in this specific interaction. That's great. But when it comes to building the conversation, writing at the same time as moving the sliders around and remembering in your head, okay, I wrote this for what kind of a situation or what kind of a relationship, is a lot more confusing than having that set. You set the premise and then you write to a very specific premise instead of a dynamic shifting premise while you're writing, which is a lot more confusing. So, I'm really excited. I've had a lot of fun using it so far, but there's a few quality of life adjustments that I'm definitely going to bring to it to bring it a little bit further. Have a good one. Make sure to join the Discord if you haven't already to test out Electra, the free depth branching dialogue writing tool. I think it's really fun, and